Welcome, everybody. Yeah, Jeff Burns here from the Atrium team. And today we're going to talk about intelligent systems in higher education. And today with me, I've got John Gora, strategy architect from the Atrium team, decades of experience in the higher education space. And we've got Paul Harmon, as well as Molly Emmett, both data scientists on the Atrium team, helping us to define what systems of intelligence look like in higher ed. As for agenda today, we're going to go through some industry trending and talk about how higher ed organizations are using AI, how they're harnessing data as a strategic asset. We're going to talk through customer use cases and success stories, and we'll provide you a little example of what customers in the space are doing from a demo perspective. And so with that, before we get into the details, we'll give you a little bit of an overview of Atrium as a company. So Atrium is a consulting company. We implement intelligent systems, and the way we really focus is by blending industry strategy, in this case, higher ed focus, with data science and AI and analytics, and we enable those insights on intelligent platforms such as Salesforce.com. From a platform partner perspective, we are a Salesforce.com Platinum Consulting Partner. Many of the solutions that we deploy are enabled through the system of engagement on the Salesforce platform. And then we also work very closely with partners like Amazon, AWS, Snowflake, Tableau, as well as other partners to bring those insights, those data analytics to life on the Salesforce platform. So that's a little bit about Atrium. Now, the journey that we typically take with many of our customers, particularly those in the higher ed space, but really across the board, is systems of intelligence typically are not enabled in one fell swoop, in one project. These are programs. And so often when we're starting to work with our customers, they'll have a system of engagement. It may be Salesforce, it may be another system, and they're using kind of the standard self-service reporting. There may be some spreadsheets, there might be some separate analytics in place that reside in a place that's different from where people are actually working. That tends to be kind of a status quo of most of our customers when we start working together. And one of the things that we do is we put together roadmaps to help customers develop the vision for what a data-driven enterprise looks like. What does an intelligence system look like in their space? And that journey is usually comprised of moving through a few different levels of maturity, right? The first is, are we aligned on our metrics? Do we understand what we're after? And then can we surface those metrics in teachable moments so that we can make better decisions through our business process, through the journeys that we take every day when working with our customers, in this case, with our students. And then we look to establish kind of that minimum viable model, right? What's the first step we can take? We might not have the best data in the world. That's okay. Typically, we can deploy a minimum viable model with a smaller data set and a narrower data set than most folks think. The trick is to get the first one out there, contextualize it in a set of analytics, have a write back mechanism so that we can take insights and surface that in the place where we're actually working. From there, we can deploy in such a way so that we can enable action frameworks. We can build our data set. We can get more insights into our business. And in doing so, train additional models for more insight-driven recommendations. So moving from descriptive to predictive, both on an insight all the way to prescribed action, right? As we move up that maturity scale, as we build our data set, as we have more insights, as we refine our process. It's common for these journeys to take multiple quarters, sometimes multiple years, but invariably we can get there by taking a journey through these steps. And so I'm going to hand it over to John, and John's going to take us through some points of view, specifically on the higher education space and how our clients in that space are embarking on these journeys. John?
All right. Well, thanks, Jeff. So the higher education industry was in a time of transition even before COVID-19 hit. There are a lot of things that have been happening, things like shifts in dynamics and demographics, student preferences and the needs of students. COVID-19 really just accelerated a lot of the changes that were already happening. As you can see in that graphic in that cartoon in the upper right-hand corner, the timelines really shrank. And a lot of things have been happening for higher education in light of COVID-19. There's been a ton of economic impacts, huge shifts in the delivery of education. We've seen, brick and mortar institutions really scramble to deliver to their students. And of course, the needs for operational efficiency, which were always there, just became a lot more important. Of course, COVID hasn't affected all programs and all institutions the same way. Online institutions and online programs have actually seen an increase in enrollment, while brick and mortar has been radically altered. Their delivery methods from hybrid, and some have actually had to totally shut down. In light of all this change, we really see three big themes that we are seeing with higher education and intelligent systems. The first theme is really about getting students back into school. So the use of artificial intelligence to connect to the right learners. Mostly we see this around lead routing and data-driven lead scoring. These are techniques that the private sector has pretty much perfected, especially when looking for consumers. And now higher education is really adopting those models in connecting to the right learners. And when I say learners, I mean lifelong learners, because another thing that we're seeing in this world is that learners are not the traditional students of 18 to 23. Schools are using artificial intelligence to connect to learners throughout their career. So maybe they want to get a new certification or an advanced degree. A lot of higher education is using artificial intelligence to find those people throughout their career. The next big theme is around student retention and really improving the lives of students while they're in the institution. And the use of intelligent systems is really around finding which students who need what kind of intervention when. And it's really about persistence and finding the at-risk individuals that may not be obvious. And when I say at-risk, it can be things like academic, which is usually the first thing we think of, making sure students get the right tutoring and the right help they need when they need it. But also things like psychological help and financial help before they drop out of the program, finding ways to connect to these students. The other way we've been seeing is using chatbots to allow students to get self-service when they need it. A lot of students in this new paradigm of COVID-19 might not even know what programs and help is out there for them. So reaching out for them, letting them reach into the institution through chatbots is a good way to do it. Another thing we're seeing is smoothing the handoff between recruitment and student success teams. A lot of times we get a lot of data when students get into the institution. They're excited about their careers and the programs that they're entered. A lot of times that data and information is lost when they get into the semesters and quarters that follow. So making sure we have an intelligent way of connecting to them. The third theme we're seeing is about making learning more personalized. Community colleges have really been pioneers in doing the guided pathways. A lot of schools are trying to look to see guided pathways really being personalized to every student's journey. Every student could have a personalized journey within a class, so not just throughout a whole program. When things are online, you're actually collecting a lot of data about students. You can get them the right learning when they need it, the right help when they need it, and really personalize a program. So in some ways, COVID-19 and the move to online learning is a huge opportunity for giving students the exact education they need to achieve their goals. Along with this data, we're seeing a look into what we call data-driven advising, where the student advisor is no longer just a career coach, but really a life coach and seeing everything that they need to get through a program and to reach their goals, career and otherwise. So now let's talk to Paul about some customer success stories to see how this kind of these things are being used in the field.
Awesome. Thanks, John. So we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of customer success stories, particularly around the online education space here. This first example is a customer that runs an online university, and you can think about the process by which a student would attend this type of university as follows. Basically, a prospective learner would fill out a request for information form. And when they fill that form out, they become a lead within this university system. That university then assigns somebody called an enrollment specialist to help that learner answer any questions about the program that they're interested in. And ultimately, the end goal is to try to get them to fill out an application. Once they fill out an application, they're then able to be admitted into a program, start courses, and ultimately work towards graduating. Now, our focus as part of this project was around the lead to application phase of the enrollment process. And this customer in particular struggled with developing kind of a systematic process for assignment of leads and ultimately the contact cadence and type that they were using to interface with these potential learners. So we help them by building a model to basically identify which prospective students are more likely to complete an application, and ultimately to take that information to help the enrollment specialist make data-driven decisions about who to work with first and how to contact those leads as they move through the pipeline. So our solution leveraged a series of different tools. In particular, we built a model in Einstein Discovery to predict the propensity for an individual lead to apply using a tool called logistic regression. And basically what this regression model would do is it would assign a score to an individual lead between 0 and 100 that can be thought of as the probability of that lead to fill out an application. So for instance, a lead with a score of, say, 85 has a high likelihood of applying, whereas a lead with a score of 5 or 6% only has a low likelihood of filling out an application. In addition to those scores, we were able to also surface potential reasons or key factors associated with leads that kind of identify who is more likely or less likely to convert. And those factors could then be surfaced to enrollment specialists to help them make decisions. The ultimate model that we built leveraged 22 data features, including the time of contact, the channel, and the program of interest, as well as a series of other data elements that went in. And the output of that model, that score, ultimately was leveraged within an action framework that comprised dashboards in Einstein Analytics, as well as Einstein Next Best Action to help automate the process of making decisions based on this the data that we were using for the enrollment specialist. And ultimately what this drove was a lead engagement strategy that wasn't just random or based on subjective opinion, but rather totally data-driven. The results then helped enrollment specialists to prioritize the way that they spent their time, allowing them to work with the leads that were most likely to convert first, and that helped kind of improve their lead conversion rate. Additionally, the insights that they gained around how and when to contact different leads helped them to reduce the number of required outreach points that they had with these potential students, and they were able to be a little more efficient with their contact cadence. That predictive analytics also allowed for differentiated outreach specific to each program of interest. So a student in one program might actually be treated a little bit different than a student in another program. And all of this combined together to help architect basically a solution that drives data-driven decision-making using Einstein Next Best Action. I think the data scientist at this particular customer put this in the best way. She said, "We had never looked at our data in this manner. Understanding what is actionable will help us refine existing models and build better models into the future." And I think that's really a key goal when thinking about making data-driven decisions, especially in the higher ed space. Another example of customer success was at Pearson Online Learning Services, which is one of the largest providers of online education out there. These guys support 40 plus academic partners, 320 plus programs, and more than 62,000 students. So they're impacting a whole lot of people across a whole lot of different universities. And what we were looking to do was help them sort of facilitate their enrollment and student success processes really throughout the lifetime of a learner, as well as kind of infusing their newly implemented Salesforce org with some of the insights that would come from this predictive modeling framework. So the solution here identified key characteristics that influence both student acquisition and enrollment, as well as student success and retention. So thinking about, when interventions might be able to be made, when enrollment advisors, in this case, could actually interact with potential students and how they might help them through the pipeline. So to do that, we help them with a series of predictive models that actually hone in on specific phases within the enrollment process. And these stage-wise models, there were 3 of them, basically formed a system of enrollment predictions that helped inform key phases and key data elements that are available only at certain times of the enrollment process. Additionally, we were able to build differentiated retention models for students who had already enrolled, and we were able to break that up into graduate-focused and undergraduate-focused predictive models. All of that ended up helping us to inform intelligent coaching around the top factors associated with learner progression. So for an enrollment advisor who was working with a learner through the enrollment process, they were able to see the most important factors associated with that particular lead's likelihood to fill out an application and ultimately to start coursework. Additionally, we were able to design data-driven business processes focused on student outcomes, particularly for acquisition, but also for retention, ultimately prioritizing student success as they move through their journey from being a lead all the way to being a graduate. And all of this kind of culminated in what we expect to be about a 20% efficiency gain for converting leads into enrollments and moving all the way through that funnel, ultimately into successful graduates from whichever program of study that they ended up pursuing. So to quote Daniel Goldsmith, we moved from talking about analytics to truly understanding learner segments in a rapidly changing educational market. I think that's great to see those stories of customer success. But one of the things that we believe at Atrium is that, hearing about success and seeing that is important, but sometimes it's even better to see this in action. And so our perspective is, if we're going to look at improving these outcomes in higher ed and combining multiple different frameworks, including artificial intelligence, analytics, and surfacing insights within a flow of work into a single framework, it's easier to be shown than it is to talk about. So I'm going to introduce Molly Emmett, who's going to talk a little bit about an example at Faber University that involves enrollment lead management.
Hey, I'm Molly, a data scientist with Atrium. Today, we're going to walk you through a demonstration in Salesforce. This is a higher education demonstration that focuses on lead scoring in the university context. We'll show how an Einstein discovery model can be leveraged to build actionable steps in Salesforce, and thereby used by admissions professionals to turn potential students into enrolled students. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to take the role of an enrollment advisor, working many student leads at once. So I work for the fictional, yet fabled, Faber University. We wanted to estimate the likelihood of a potential student enrolling at Faber. Our potential students render as leads when they fill out an online form and express interest in matriculating into the school. After the form is submitted, an enrollment advisor calls the potential students to continue the connection. To determine the best route that enrollment advisors should take in relation to each student, we built a logistic regression model in Einstein Discovery using continuously updated data from our touchpoints with the potential students. Some of the factors we looked at were student motivation, the student-initiated contact, number of touchpoints, enrollment indicators, such as submission of a housing application or a scholarship application, and contact attrition, or how long has it been since our last positive communication with this individual. After building the model, we learned that the key factors that contribute to a lead score are desired profession, current profession, and the disposition of first contact. We'll swing over to the Faber University dashboard to take a closer look at our leads. As an enrollment advisor, I use this analytics dashboard to visually conceptualize my leads. On the top left-hand side, we see total leads by desired profession. Looking at this graph, we see that across all desired professions, most potential students are interested in business. We can also hover over any of the bar segments and see the number of leads associated with each disposition. On the right-hand side, we see a distribution of scores across all potential students. The lead scores derived from our model are broken into low, medium, and high scoring leads. Looking at this light blue segment, I see that 9.1 thousand of our leads score in the medium category. If we click on any segment of either of the top graphs, the entire dashboard facets to reflect what we've chosen. For example, scores in the medium range. Clicking again, we return to the entirety of the data. Lucky for me, the next section will help me move these leads. Here at the bottom, I see lists of low, medium, and high scoring leads. We can perform bulk actions directly from the dashboard based on these lists. For medium scored leads, we can add to a nurture campaign. For high scored leads, we can click here and add to a call list, both capabilities permitting us to take action to increase the student's chances of enrollment. We'll focus for a moment on Abbott Saunders to get an idea of what this looks like for an individual lead. On the left, we have current information about Abbott. On the right, we have a lightning card that provides insight into Abbott's propensity to enroll. Abbott's enrollment advisor is my colleague at Faber University, Paul. Paul will take a look at the lightning card to determine the next best steps in relation to Abbott. Abbott's current propensity to enroll is 56.96%. This was calculated by the logistic regression model we built in the back end of Einstein. We see the factors that positively contribute to his score, including that his desired profession is business. We see that Abbott's propensity to enroll will go up if we contact him additional times, such as scheduling weekly follow-ups with him. When we record these contacts, Abbott's score automatically recalculates and displays on his lightning card with updated insights and actions to increase his score further. If Abbott submits a housing application, and we record this here, we see his score change even more. Now Paul knows to hit the phones to move Abbott towards enrollment. Thanks so much for spending time with Atrium at Faber University.
All right, thank you, Molly. So, gosh, we saw a lot today. We saw how customers are taking the journey across various solutions to drive increases in their enrollment and all the way through the student journey. And we saw how we can take our first steps to get that minimum viable product out there to start our journey to becoming a data-driven enterprise in higher education. So we'd love to continue the conversation with you. Please reach out to us. You can see the contact information here on this slide. And we'd love to get started with you with a workshop to kind of help provide that vision for how you can progress through your data-driven journey for systems of intelligence in higher education. Thanks, everyone.